Hello, everyone, and welcome to the welcome to the stream. So happy to have you all. Hello, Christy. Welcome, welcome. We are back here reading our Warhammer 30K shenanigans. Um, sorry, man, my throat is all kinds of gurgly from I guess my lunch I just ate. But so previously on, what the heck? Gotta check this thing. You lied to me, Streamlabs. My mic was in fact not muted. um, but yeah, so previously on our plucky Titan Legio Solaria, finally got to square up with their sworn nemesis, Legio Volpa, and absolutely dumpstered their initial engagement against the Chaos Legion. Um, the Legio of Amazonian, basically like Artemis hunters, just too good. As the bad guy Legion has gone very cuckoo for corn puffs, and so they're beginning to suffer from the corruption, compromising their own decision making process. We got a brief perspective of one of the Legio Volpa bad Principe, who has a history with Esha something Mohana, Esha Mohana Vai's daughter. And now we are learning about when they first met each other and what exactly went down. And the male Volpa Principe definitely wanted to tap Esha's ass, as they say. So we are currently at a big party between the two Legio, and let's see how things go. I'll start at the top of the page just because I don't remember exactly where I was, but also friendly reminder, this is an audiobook, so you can always comment stuff in chat and let me know if you have any questions or thoughts or whatever, and I'll respond to them accordingly. The Death Stalkers watched their guests suspiciously. The Imperial. Oh, I forgot to turn on the radio. Or the radio, the BGM. Sorry. Let me know if it's too loud or too quiet. There we go. The Death Stalkers watched their guests suspiciously. The Imperial Hunters provoked them with secret smiles. You're not that late, Dollface. I just started. I was doing intro stuff. Hey, night. Welcome. Hertek was the boldest. He broke the silence and marched up to Esha Ani Mohana. You are Esha Ani Mohana, he stated. He saluted. Oh, he saluted her with a full Aquila, hands splayed across his chest. Her returning smile was condescending. She forewent the salute and clicked her heels instead. I am Principe of Bestia S, she said. The beast is, said Terrant Hertek, translating the High Gothic into the common speech. You are no beast. You look like a huntress. What an attempted Rizzler. Also, the beast is such a bizarre name for something. It's kind of like, okay. That is because I am, she said with a confident smile. We all are, of course. Her smile took on elements of flirtation and mockery. We are the Imperial Hunters. The women with her laughed. What is the class of your Titan? He said. Her forehead wrinkled between raised eyebrows. This is fine introduction, she said. I heard the lords of your Legio never learn the identities of their moderati, but I thought a Principe might offer his name in greeting to another commander. Hertek tensed. The situation was not proceeding as he had planned. Legio Volpa was a forthright order. Assess the target, advance, and destroy. Esha slipped aside from the first volley of conversation. Like gunsmoke on a breeze, he was gladdened when others approached their opposite numbers and began making their own introductions. Some Principe pledged vows of support to their would-be allies, others simply bragged about their prowess. Soon the room was abuzz with human and machine speech, covering Hertek's discomfiture. "I apologize," he said, the words coming hard to him. "I am Terrent Hertek, Principe of Nuntio Dolores." "The Herald of Sorrow," she flashed another wounding smile. "Do you live up to your Titan's name?" His own expression set hard. "So my enemies say, in the moments before their deaths." "How impressive!" She looked about herself, amused at the display around her. The hunters were more at ease than their hosts, but tentative friendships were budding. The line of green and dark red uniforms was beginning to mingle, two sets of particles mixed by inevitable social physics. "Like this hall, it is beautiful, if a little brutal in design. Each to their own, I suppose." "This is only a field base," he said. She nodded. "It is mightier than our Order's base fortress, but then we are swift runners. We live on the wind." She smiled again. He was not entirely sure she was joking. "You are a fearsome Order, so I hear," she smiled. "So, then, is it true?" "What?" "What I heard, that you do not learn your crew's names." He nodded. "It is true. Crewing a Titan requires men of honor, bravery, loyalty, decisiveness. These are the skills our legio demands of every member of its Titan crews. We Principe are more than those we command. We are the minds of the god engines. The Moderati are components in the engine. They are beneath us." "You speak of them like they're servitors." "Servitors have no will of their own. Our Moderati understand our code. They are part of it. From their ranks we raise new Principe. They fight harder to be granted their own command. The day they cast off their mask and are accepted into our ranks is one of great honor." "You were a Moderati once?" "I was. Every Principe was. Were you?" "Of course." "Of course," he echoed. "Then answer this," he said. "When you were a Moderati, did you seek to impose your view upon the Principe? Did you question his orders? Did you act of your own accord?" I like that the question his orders, knowing he has to know the Imperial Hunters are an all-female legio. So it's just like a funny gender usage for something that is just a wildly incorrect term for her own legio. Oh, she fucking called him out on it. I'm glad the book predicted it. Her orders, corrected Esha. Hers, his, it doesn't matter. He shrugged. Only resolve matters. Affection does not matter. Personal ties are an encumbrance. I do not make friends with my pistol. To be a Moderati is to be a part of a god machine, but to be a Principe is to be one. The chance for command is enough of an honor for any man. They need no more. An interesting perspective, she said. What of the mind impulse unit? When you link with your engines, do you not touch minds? That is the nature of the mechanism, he said, allowing himself a little of his own condescension. Then you must know something of your crew. Nothing at all, he said. We undergo rigorous training to banish all extraneous thought. Only mental activity pertaining to the successful prosecution of war is permitted. You experience the machine trance? Yes. Not like we do. Our mental techniques purify it. We excel at union. When our minds mingle over the interface, we achieve a greater unity with our titans than other legios. If we did not, then every personal feeling, all the envies and passions and the doubts men feel, would poison the blessedness of psychomechanical congregation. And the machine would suffer. The mission would suffer. With our humanity separated, we are free to abandon the weakness of the flesh. We embrace the full fury of the god engines, and wreak the destruction that must be done without either doubt or regret. He was speaking as fervently as one of the legio tech priests. She laughed at him for it, and his hackles rose. Based heretic. Actually, my gender is God Machine. You take this all too lightly, madam. By banishing humanity, we are one with the machine. Can you say the same? Forgive me, she said. I am insulting your honor, and I do not mean to. It's just that your way is so different than ours. Actually, our methods are completely opposed. She plucked a glass of sparkling wine from a server's plate and sipped it. We all know each other deeply. We hold nothing back. We share everything. That way, there are no difficulties in achieving a deep mind blend. We cannot surprise each other because we know all there is to know about one another. We know how we will react and all our strengths and weaknesses. We live together and hunt together. Our bonds lessen the pain of withdrawal from the machine when we are not at war. Oh, he's tired of being homophobic. Let's go homophobia up in here. I hear you lie with each other, he scoffed. We do, she said and glanced at him. A human body has its needs. Like I said, we share everything. God damn! This fucking book! Let's go! The all-female legion is obviously a bunch of lesbians. Let's go. One man at his encounter with an all-lesbian legion left bamboozled by the experience. Based? Legio based, more like it? Not Legio Solaria? Hey Tyler, welcome. This book already 5 stars. 10 out of 10 book. Has an openly lesbian fucking Titan Legion, and I fully support this. This is the queer representation we need in 40K. Gotcha. Well, welcome, Nort. Feel free to hang out. Yeah, you just came to the female legion commander being like, yeah, all of our female crew, we mind link with each other so that, like, we know each other intimately. And he's like, well, I hear you guys have sex with each other too. And she goes, well, yeah, obviously. You gotta, why wouldn't we? Your body has needs. Heretic noted how smoothly the Imperial hunters moved. They slid between the stolid death stalkers as water slides through reeds. If their titans moved as easily as the women, perhaps their way of battle had something to recommend it. His own sense of superiority prevented him from saying so. Do you not indulge the flesh? She asked. We are as we are because the machine god decreed it. The mechanisms of bodily pleasure are his gift. Sometimes, Heretic admitted. He felt ashamed. He had that yearning. He felt it for her right then. It is a weakness I do my best to control. It interferes with the state of perfect union. Oh, it's not a weakness, said Esha. Nor is it a right or an obligation as others maintain. But it is an opportunity. You feel shame for no reason. No permanent attachments are allowed, of course. She went on, either oblivious to his rising passion or deliberately snubbing it. That would bring complications, but we believe all of human nature must be embrace if the machine is to have balance. She looked at him. Your legio has a reputation for cruelty. We do not. Perhaps our methodology separates you. Or perhaps your methodology separates you too much from mankind. Yours has a reputation for cravenness, he said back. Also, shout out the sex positive lesbian legion. Gotta love it. Legio Solaria. That, somebody, when I rated Nerdcast last week, one of the artists I really like, Artsy Faye, was like, when I was describing the all-female Italian Legion, because, olive skin, dark hair, green eyes, they're basically Italian, in my opinion. I could be wildly incorrect. But, like, the all-female Italian Legion of hot girl bosses, and she's like, you obviously know what you need to be drawing right now. He was disappointed when she did not take offense. It might look that way, but our tactics are sound. Our engine loss to victory ratio is better than all but 3 other legios. She stared at him provocatively and repeated herself for emphasis. Only 3 other of all the orders of the Collegio Titanica can claim to lose fewer god engines per battle than we do. We strike, we fall back, we bleed the enemy's strength. When the time is right, we deliver the death blow. Your order walks forwards, leveling everything that is found in front of it. It is simplistic. Some might say you are too much in thrall to the machine spirits of your titans. Some might die if they said so. Oh, so it makes you angry that I speak so. Do you see? She said. She drank more of her wine. That is exactly what I'm talking about. We are a synthesis, humanity and machine. She laced her fingers together around the glass and rocked her hands back and forth. The human is essential to the well-being of the machine. It cannot be denied that mankind, as a part of the Machina Cosma, is holy in itself. The form of the engines mimics that of holy humanity. This. She swept her hand down her body. Trunk, head, limbs. It is the form ordained by the machine god. If the form were unimportant, the engines we make would be different. But by making them in our own image, we make them in his. If we deny our own humanity, we deny part of our God's plan. We deny him. I could introduce you to 100 tech priests who would disagree with you. And I could find 100 who would agree with me, she said. There is room for every manner of worship in the cult, but some are closer to the machine god's intent than others. He grunted aggressively. A member of his own legio would have been silenced, but she challenged him. Oh, that's not to your liking? She said. He laughed himself. Some of his annoyance boiled off with it. Sometimes I wish for a little more clarity from our machines and magi, he said. Battle is simple. Theology annoys me. If that offends you, we have little to talk about. Oh, very little offends me, Esha said. That is good. Despite her attitude, he was feeling more comfortable. He found her candor refreshing. It is good to be above matters of little importance. All this chatter is of no consequence. He paused. Might I show you what is? Her eyes gleamed. She guessed at what he offered. Perhaps both parts of it. Oh, you would allow me to see Legio Volpa's engines? There'll be a formal display tomorrow, but you can see them now, if you like, without the distraction of the others. Isn't there some sort of ceremony to come? The blooding? Said Heretic. A little vitae is spilled and drawn upon the oath plate of our legio. Nothing you will regret missing. We'll be back in time for the feast and the exchange of legends. Then I would like very much to see the engines, she said. She drained her glass and placed it on a table. He looked around himself. He motioned to her, extending his hand around her back to shepherd her through the throng. He was surprised when she turned and took hold of it. Her hand was tiny in his and cool, as if she had come in from a long spell outdoors. This way, he said. He led her through the crowd behind long drapes filling the gaps between the pillars of the hall's colonnade. In the closed-off corridor made by the curtains it was darker, and the rising chatter between the two legios muffled. Electro flambeau gave off dancing light but no heat, and it was cool away from the press of bodies. A Deleuze menial carrying a huge ewer of wine bustled past, his eyes averted from his betters. Heretic paid him no more heed than he would a stone. Through the curtained-off space he led her, past high windows of heat-shocked crystal looking out over the conquered world. The stone of the walls was freshly cut, and the minerals twinkled in the false firelight. Legio Volpa had claimed the highest mountain for their lair, the home of gods in this world's overthrown creed. A bold statement to imprint the imperial truth on the planet for all time. Gods of metal to banish those of make-believe. A squat circular steel door, newly made and still gleaming, filled the middle of the hall's narrower chamber. Heretic spoke to Esha. He was reluctant to release her hand, but did so. Look away, please. He half expected her to refuse, but she obliged. On the far side of the curtains, the volume of chatter was rising, bragging and boasting, not all of it good-natured. Heretic approached the door before he breathed upon its hidden gene sensors. He checked the huntress was still looking away. Locks clanked all around the door, and it rolled aside. You are careful, she said, turning back to face him. You aren't? I take you to the underworld. Such passages are never opened lightly. They passed into a long tubular corridor, leading down into the mountain. Every part of its surface, apart from the floor, was lined with soft plastic pipes and bundled cables. There was no door at the far end. The corridor simply opened into a larger space. The quality of sound and movement of air suggested great volume. They passed between a pair of guards hidden in sentry holes. The guards came alert as soon as the couple tripped their detection beams and emerged like figures in an elaborate plot. Heretic waved a hand. They read the ident marker embedded in his wrist and retreated into their alcoves without a word. The challenge done, Esha and Heretic stepped out into Legio Volpa's hull of armaments. 70 titans stood in bays carved into the flesh of the mountain, like forgotten deities unearthed from an underground tomb. They faced each other over a wide surface road, arranged by size rather than manifold. Most had been refitted and repaired after the compliance, although half a dozen were cocooned by repair scaffolds. Limbs protruded from behind the sheeting covering the tower so that they looked like giant patients in Medicae Bay prepared for surgery. The remainder stood proudly in full view. Their banners had been washed and repaired, and fresh honors stitched into them. The deep red and cream of their livery gleamed with polish. The metallic edgings of their armor plates were clean, buffed to a high shine. At the far end of the hall, the gates were open, and sunlight shone through their high arch. So distant and bright, no detail of the outside was visible through the glare. The Titans looked like they were the guardians of a heavenly portal. Heretic stopped. Look upon this hall, and halt a while. What generations will come after, and see these fortresses we make and wonder, as we wander at the ruins of Zeto's empires gone before, and say, What giants once stood here? Very poetic, she said. She took a few steps ahead of him, neck craned, eyes taking in every detail. They are not my lines. I quote one of the Remembermancers accompanying the fleet, said Heretic. He has written volumes of verse about the legio, but that line sticks with me. You do not think the histories will tell those of the future exactly what they need to know? She asked. No empire lasts forever. Everything is undone. Time fells even the gods. Poetry tells truths better than history. There are no gods but the one who is three, she said, looking back at him. Figuratively speaking, he said, becoming irritated that she did not share his awe at the sight of his legio's engine, or his passion for the verse. She turned to face him. Then why do you fight, if our Imperium will one day fail? For honor, he said, for glory. I was born to fight. It is my purpose to bring ruin to the Emperor's enemies. Destruction has a beauty of its own. I follow the path of the Machina Cosma. The universe itself works relentlessly to render the complex simple in preparation for the great reforging. I am a holy agent of entropy. But glory and honor are fleeting. They die with the man who prizes them. That is the nature of entropy, he agreed. Entropy is to be resisted, she said. He moved his hand in a way that meant neither yes nor no. Why do you fight? He asked. She shrugged. For the future, and the hope that perhaps our species might succeed where others have not. I do not believe in the tenets of the entropic creed. It is a sensible philosophy. It is a challenge set us by the machine god. What is technology but the creation of complexity from the decaying system of the universe? Moisture dripped from somewhere high overhead. A large puddle had gathered in the road. Each drip broke the reflections of the god machine into rings, and sent a glittering spray of droplets dancing in the sunlight, blazing from outside. Why is it that you have only women in your legio? Esha smiled. You've been wanting to know that since you greeted me. I have. It is simply our custom. Then tell me where this custom comes from. It's just a custom. Heretic struggled to maintain his humor. He was equally as irritated as he was attracted to the strange woman, and he desired to know. Humor me, he said. Please. Heretic hardly ever said please. He tasted the word. It fit his mouth poorly. Oh, very well, she said. She put her hands behind her back in a way that suggested she took the stance habitually, and looked back over Volpa's Titans. The founding mothers of our order were of the knightly house of Vi, one of several found on the planet Procon. Never heard of it, said Heretic. You are hearing of it now, she said teasingly. The conflict of desire and annoyance in Heretic intensified. All my kind hail from there, ultimately, said Esha. She walked on through the silence of the hall, looking over the gigantic shapes of the war engines, as if she were appraising beasts of burden in a backworld market. Heretic followed. Their echoing footsteps set up an uneasy syncopation, always threatening to fall out of rhythm. The Mechanicum came to Procon not long after the first iterators visited. The promises of the Imperium were vague. Those of the Martians were concrete, shall we say. The Mechanicum bargain of fealty. Weapons, technology, material, knowledge, and aid, he said. That I know well. Esha nodded. Procon's knights were old. Its lords had lost most of the secrets needed to keep their mounts running. Steam took the place of plasma. Explosive lances and steel swords were wielded instead of energy weapons. From what I know, I don't think the night suits would have survived longer than a few more generations had the priests not come. Hey Cygnus, thank you for the resub. 45 months running. Welcome, welcome. And hello Thomas, happy to have you. Poor incentive for the priests. She smiled. Ah, there are other devices on Procon that the Mechanicum coveted. Aren't there always? The priests are rapacious. Heretic moved to Esha's side. She matched her footsteps to his, but they immediately began to drift out of time again. I'll bet they paraded the finest examples of knightly tech they could and asked only for a few small favors in return. Naturally, she said. In fact, I think they brought a lance of House Tyrannus with them for that very purpose. The Knights of Procon must have looked like beggars in their battered engines. They probably meant to look proud, but felt like fools. Heretic grunted a laugh. So what did these foolish beggars sell for their shining new guns and war suits? Well, therein lies the tale, said Esha. Heretic was very close. He was a large man, physically imposing, and he loomed over her. They stopped and turned to face each other. She flashed a smile and laid a hand on his chest, not to push away, but to invite him in. There was a contest, she said, to snatch a favor of the machine and take it to the representatives of Mars visiting the planet. The knights were supposed to fight for it, but the Great Mother took it instead. Houseby cheated, they say. The women of that world were not permitted to ride within the knights, as they are elsewhere. Procon is a stratified place. Is that so? Said Heretic. Then how did she come to take it? There is a goddess they used to follow on Procon, Pachmatres of the Hunt. Popular with women, the Great Mother was a devotee. She rode a horse through the melee of knights and stole the prize. A horse? He said. He moved closer. You know, an equid, an ancient beast of terror. They're common on some worlds. I saw one once. They're quite beautiful. The point is, her mount was flesh and blood. She could have died. She broke the rules of the contest, but the Mechanicum exploited the situation and said her house had won. Her father, who was the king, by the way, Rahajanan, thought he could exploit them in return. Part of the exchange was to be a tithe of young nobles to Tigris. Rahajanan saw the opportunity to save his warriors, and so offered the daughters of his house instead. He thought he was being clever. His daughter was troublesome. His knights were valuable. But, she whispered, they were close enough to one another that they shared breath. Rahajanan was deceived. He could think only as a beggar king. He did not know what the Mechanicum required his warriors for. He thought he had tricked the Red Priest and saved his best warriors for himself, selling off his house's daughters in their stead To whom knew what fate? He did not care. He kept his knights. They gained the technologies of the outland men. What did it matter to him if it cost him a few women? Sounds like a good deal to me, said Hairtech. Esha shook her head. Like most lords of the knightly houses, Rajanan's view was fatally constrained. He had no conception of the power of Terra or Mars. He could not guess at the might wielded by the Mechanicum. He did not know that only weeks' travel away, war engines far mightier than those he had bartered his children for stood sentinel over a new world of industry. The Forge World Tigress. He did not know of the Titans. So our Great Mother was sent away from the plains and forests, away from her brothers, away from her beloved mount. Her and 150 other bartered daughters of House Vi. The smile she gave him now was less mocking, more of pleasure. It did not matter to the Mechanicum of Tigress whether the knightly houses provided males or females. They required good gene stock with proven compatibility with mind impulse units. From a politically neutral source. That is all. And so the Great Mother's bitterness at her exile turned to a grim delight as she and her sisters were trained as the mistresses of a new legio of god machines. When she returned to Procon several years later, her father had to kneel before her. I imagine she laughed to see that. His vaunted warsuit was a child before the machine she ruled. He had played the cunning king and unwittingly elevated his daughter to godhood. A foolish king, Heretic agreed. But why do you remain only women? This was years ago. Surely, what about lost replacement, new recruits? How do you recruit? Stringent testing of all children of our legio for the desired attributes: courage, ferocity, and intelligence. The rest? He smiled humorously, or humorlessly. You know what happens to the rest. We're well provided with servitors. Every child of our legio knows the price if they are found wanting. It encourages the ruthlessness we require. Well, we are different, she said, her other hand on his chest. Heretic shrugged. Every legio has its ways. Some are better than others. Yours are the best? He grinned savagely. Your own ways are always the best. The exiled daughters made a pact with their new legio that no man would ever command them, that they would take their own counsel, and that although they were forbidden from worshipping her, they would honor the principles of the sacred huntress alongside the machine god. Since the day of our founding, every single one of our Legio Titan crew has been female. What do you do with the males? You know what happens to the rest, she said, echoing his words. Really? Servitors! She laughed. No! Most of us are fat-born, selected to be female at conception. The few natural males we give birth to are given to the priesthood. Many end up serving the Legio's tech priests. But some are servitors? Right. Okay, so back where we were. But some are servitors? Yes, some are, she admitted. He moved in closer to her, their cheeks brushed. For someone who was ashamed of his desires, you seem very practiced. I said I was imperfect. I never said I did not indulge myself. He said, tell me, where do these male children come from? He breathed into her ear. You allow no pair bonding? And you are all female anyway. Do the tech priests open up their gene vault for you to choose? Oh no, Esha whispered back. We don't make them all like that. Heretic kissed her with a ferocity she welcomed. The god machines stared across the aisle at one another, unconcerned by the doings of the mortals at their feet. And that was how Terran Heretic met Esha Ani Mohana. Chapter 11, Sleepless. Since we just finished a big chapter, but take a pause here, how are people feeling so far? I actually, I'm not gonna lie, that chapter was spicy as hell. Not only did we get sex-positive Legion pilots and stuff, we got a all-female Legion that is openly sapphic, like that you could be totally a lesbian and it's entirely fine, as well as bisexuals and stuff. They're just here to fuck. They're just like, yeah, man, we just want to fuck. Humans need to fuck, and so do we. And, so good. So good. This book is proving to be quite key. So, I hope everybody is enjoying it so far and enjoying that chapter. I know that I have an incredibly gay audience, so I imagine the discovery of lesbian mecha pilots is definitely appealing. Give me a minute to have some water. Okay. Chapter 11, Leafless. Inactivity was the worst of all situations for a Titan Principe. They longed for battle, and their desire was not solely the product of bloodthirstiness. Many warriors sought glory in war, and that included many Principe. But for the Titan Lords, their desire for the field was of a deeper sort. Once a Principe had bonded with their Titan a score more times, then glory, duty, victory, all the fighter qualities of war became secondary to a deep physical need. A Principe wished for battle because they sought escape from their frail bodies. No man or woman could become a god for a while and not yearn for the sensation when it was done. A Principe in peace was an angel cast out of heaven, and like those mythical beings, they suffered when they walked the impure lands of mortals. Symptoms included chills, aching in the bones like ice wrapped in fire, nausea, or ennui, and crippling migraines. Esha mentally ticked off the list of agonies that long ago the instructors of the Legio Scholastica had told her to expect when they went away from her machine. As a list, they were an abstract. Experienced, they were beyond description. So she often thought of that list as she tried to sleep, and failed while 1,000 discomforts played havoc with her nerves. An occurrence that happened more often than not now. She and Second Maniple had seen no action for 6 weeks. The Legio held the Iridium Yards and the Moon. Mohana Mankata Vai showed no desire to expand their holdings. They were too strong to challenge in their stronghold, and so an uneasy truce fell between the Legio's Furians, Volpa, and Solaria. But at least the other Maniples were sent out on patrol. Hers was not. She wondered if she had offended the Great Mother in some way, or if conversely she was being protected. She was the last daughter of Mohana Mankata Vai. Maybe there was something symbolic in her person. The Great Mother dared not risk. Maybe it was sentimentality. The Tantamon was moored with the rest of the fleet in the lee of the moon. Sporadic firing flashed around Theta Garmin 5's or high orbital sphere, but the exchange of gunfire was unenthusiastic, predictable, and ineffective. Tantamon's defense weaponry rattled away ceaselessly. However, when it was not knocking torpedoes out of the void, it was vaporizing the larger, more dangerous chunks of orbitals destroyed earlier in the war. Huge amounts of metal circled the gas giant. A fleck of paint would hole an unshielded vessel when traveling at 40,000 kilometers an hour. A piece a few meters across could bring down the void shields of a capital ship. The increased power draw of the guns changed the sog of the ship's systems to an irritating insectile whine, and the metal vibrated to an inconstant pattern. By each trembling beat, she recognized the various batteries firing. At times like that, she resented her empathy for machines. She really had spent too much time in that room. Her bed was a partially enclosed cot set into the wall that seemed designed for maximum claustrophobic effect. An accusation that could equally be leveled at the whole room. Her quarters were tiny. A little desk took up a third of the space. There was a small sink with a single tube tap in the wall opposite the bed, and a wardrobe opposite the desk near the foot of the bed. Between engagements, the room was her quarter of the universe. It stank of her own stale odor layered over that of Principe of earlier days still clinging on. The void ship was old and dirty. Standards had been allowed to slip as the Civil War dragged on, and in any case, too many agonized, wide-eyed nights had been endured in those quarters for any amount of cleaning to expunge the smell of desperation. Ah, the musk of lesbians. You know, I just imagine some new Principe assigned to the room sniffing the cot like the, pan to sweaty Principe and its, smell particles going right to the nose meme. Ah, yes, I have smelled the fucking of many lesbians in this room. Glorious it is. The Tantamon maintained a steady temperature at its inhabited decks that was just the wrong side of comfortably warm. The cot's single sheet was soaked with sweat and tangled in her bare legs. She knew already she wouldn't sleep, but she was dogged and chased after rest like a good huntress. Puppy girl, let's go. Now that I'm thinking about it, every Warlord Titan crew is basically a lesbian puppy girl in this Legion. And new art idea here. What if a artwork of Mohana Esha Esha Mankata or Esha Mohana Makata. Sorry, I forgot her silly ass name. Holding a leash on some collared puppy girl Warhound Titan Principe with sticking her tongue out. That is the NSFW artwork that Warhammer 30k needs. I'm putting that energy out in the world. The Tantamon maintained a steady temperature at its inhabited decks. That was just the wrong... Wait, did I already read this? No, that was just the wrong side of comfortably warm. The cot's single sheet was soaked with sweat and tangled in her bare legs. She knew already she wouldn't sleep, but she was dogged and chased... Oh, I already read that part, sorry. She supposed she should close her eyes again, but that only made the throbbing around her MIU ports worse. She had the feeling they were being rejected by her flesh, pushed out of her body by her rebellious bones. After months of suffering, she'd finally gone to the Magos Medicae biologist. He had assured her such a thing was impossible. She wasn't completely convinced. Beside the pain inflicted by her body, there was the tricks played by her mind. Recently, she'd begun to feel small, as if the world of mortals where her flesh body navigated was a ludicrous miniature, and she had been shrunk down from her rightful height to dwell there as a punishment. Get it together, Esha, she whispered. Her lips were cracked and her breath was stale. Much more of this and they'll tank you. She stared at the cot's low ceiling. A previous occupant had scratched a representation of pockmetries into the metal. The felid-headed goddess was a tiny expression of individuality. Yo! Egyptian core? Maybe that's the art. Maybe they're actually Egyptian. They're Artemis themed, but their goddess is basically... God, what am I thinking here? Basque from Egyptian mythology. I don't know. I have to Google that more. The felid-headed goddess was a tiny expression of individuality, but a dangerous one. The depiction of deities was against the imperial truth and the cult mechanicus, and would lead to demotion were it spotted. The image must have remained secret, or it would have been repaired. By not reporting it herself, Esha joined her own minor defiance to that of whoever had carved the image, and those others who had likewise not reported it. They were probably like her, thankful of something to look at while they lay in that cot in the depths of the night, wrestling with withdrawal from their god engine. Besides, the picture's existence didn't matter anymore. The imperial truth was a shaky creed. All the old certainties were gone. The truth was out. There were other gods, besides the holy trinity of knowledge, and none of them were kind. Her legs jiggled endlessly. I know that he's meaning, like, her legs were just, like, moving, like she's kind of, like, fretting with them, but the idea of her legs jiggled endlessly just makes me think of just some real meaty thighs as she's just, like, rippling them in her cot. Who here wants to see thick-thighed, Titan Principe lesbians in this house? I think this is another canon lore thing that needs to be added. She felt like they were swarming with small insects. Keeping them still was agony. She groaned and ran her hands over her face. It was slick. Her hair was greasy. Restless legs were not on the list, she muttered to herself. She groaned again. You're not going to sleep, Esha. This is a waste of time. She half expected a reply, as she sometimes received from the machines in the Titan. Nothing spoke. It was terribly lonely, she thought, out of the manifold. Oh, it was terribly lonely, she thought, out of the manifold. No touch of minds upon her own. That was the worst of all. Sweaty feet thudded onto the floor. She got up, carefully to avoid catching her interfaces on the cot's rim. The tap of the sink dispensed only lukewarm water that tasted of oil. She rinsed her mouth out with it and splashed some on her face. It made her feel marginally better. Also, based on how claustrophobic these cots are, I imagine that when you're engaging in your lesbian Titan crew actions, one girl has to be on the floor, or presumably both on the floor. That way, one girl could be on the bed portion, because it's probably only like 2-3 inches above her head for it to be as claustrophobic as they're describing, which is kind of like marine berthing in a ship in real life that I've been in. So presumably she would be spreading her legs like that, and the girl there would be taking care of business. Sorry, this doesn't have anything really to do with the book. This is just now me opining about space lesbians. The chair scraped on the floor as she pulled it out, but the cabin walls were thick, and there was no danger she would disturb anyone. She wasn't the only Principe who slept badly. Infrasound throbbed through the deck below the level of human hearing. She could be able to hear that properly if she was joined to Domina X Venari and learn what the ship was saying. Stop it, she thought. Devices made small noises in the spaces of the walls. She stopped herself before mentally attempting to bring up status information for them. Another thing she could not do in this body of flesh. She was blind, powerless, and weak. Stop it! She said louder than she intended, slapping her hand hard on the desktop. Her vehemence surprised her. There was a single data slate on the desk, next to her only personal possession, a framed pic of her first manifold. They convinced a Remembermancer to take the shot on his picture and gave them copies, a small indulgence from long ago. The chemicals in the pict were degrading, the image washed out, but the faces of her comrades were sharp enough to spark memories. Her younger self looked back at her shyly, but the belief in what she was doing was strong in her eyes. Like she could stare the galaxy down. They were all like that back then. Before the war, she said. 3 of the 5 women in the picture were dead. Only she and Durana remained from the group. She turned the pic face down and activated the data slate. Access Legio war records. State-specific Legio record required. Pacification and compliance of Dendrika 987M30. Clearance required, the data slate said. It had a pump. I have to give a different voice if it said pompous. It had a pompous little voice. Escher snorted. Really? Come on. Clearance required. Cog and skull, she muttered. Mohana Escher Ani Principe Majoris, Legio Stellaria, second manifold, line of Mohana Mankata 1st generation, ident code Delta 4332. Now let me in. I'm the daughter of the Great Mother. Recognize my pedigree, or I'll smash your screen in, you jumped-up data shunt! Clearance granted, said the machine. That's a good exchange. That's good writing right there. Ow, hit my hand. Stacked icons filled the screen. Everything about the campaign was there, from requisition orders to vid feed from guided missiles. She found that what she wanted quickly enough. Playback vid picture capture Bestia S. Data 002987 M30. Compliance, said the machine in the same fussy tones. The vid played, and Escher remembered. Have a little wah-wah. Bestia S was a Warhound Titan of 15th Manifold, and her first command. As a grandest scale class machine, it was small at 17 meters, a height not much greater than that of the larger Knight warsuits, but it was still a god machine, and she was proud of it and her small crew. She experienced none of those positive feelings the day Legio Volpa marched on Bifex. Legio Volpa are still not responding to our calls, Escher said. They are still proceeding. White spires and towers of glass gleamed in the sun. Legio Volpa's machines crept towards Bifex like murderers. She thought of the women in the city, the mothers in particular. What Volpa intended was an outrage against humanity. Escher's changing body shape made her uncomfortable. The straps had to be adapted to fit her. Yo, pregnant pilot, let's go! Pregnant mecha pilot. You know, I'm gonna opine for a second. I am curious. I'm very curious if by allowing a Titan pilot to still be like jacked into the manifold while they're pregnant, I'm wondering if all the combat stimulants and like various narcotics they get injected in as they pilot to be able to endure it, as well as feedback from the mind impulse unit and the manifold, like affect the fetus in some way, which partially lends themselves to be more more adaptable to being a future mech pilot. I wonder if that's a thing. That could be just some insane Obsidia sci-fi pseudoscience, but I think it sounds legit. If your baby could be affected by you being like an alcoholic or a drug addict or whatever in the womb, if you're full of combat drugs and fucking electrostimulation from being direct interface with a machine, I'm sure that affects the child in some way, making them more adapted for it. The worst of it was the pressure around her lower abdomen, most of which seemed to press into her bladder. Esha had never used the ablution pads built into her combat suit. She preferred to wait rather than soak herself in her own piss. But if this kept up, she was going to have to use it. Almost as bad as the need to pee was the dull ache around her coccyx. No matter how she sat, it twinged. Twinged. No position was comfortable, no longer than 10 minutes. Piss yourself. I'm sorry, just the sheer emphasis on her pissing nature and not using the fucking Titan diapers is cracking me up. So first of all, I'm assuming this is obviously her daughter with the rival mech pilot, which is why she's especially pissed off. Which potentially means that the other mech pilot that we met in Legio Salaria, who's her daughter, might be the child of that. In alternative, plot twist might be engaging in this mech combat, the mech gets damaged or destroyed or whatever, and it causes a failed pregnancy. Who knows? Who knows? I'm just opining here. Only another 12 weeks, she thought, so she's 6 months pregnant right now. Then it'll be done. Leaning forwards in her command harness took some... leaning forward in her command harness took some of the pressure off her back, but it put her at a strange angle that would have her legs cramping soon. And the restraint straps cut into her shoulders. She ignored it, trying to achieve a deeper bond with her Titan, so she could block out the discomfort completely. Bestia S responded to her agitation and picked up speed. This was not the best time for conflict to arise with their allies. The Titan was affected by Esha's changing mental state, and the systems had become truculent. Bestia S acted cautiously, where ordinarily it was first into the fray. The manifold link was strained. Esha was too aware of her pregnant body, and when Esha S' wild soul called for her guidance, her thoughts were on the city ahead. Most Legios used their warhounds as scouts, for they were swift, while their lower profiles and modest power output meant they were surprisingly easy to miss in the maelstrom of war. Legio Salaria used them for another purpose, as hunting dogs. Esha's pack was four strong, as Legio doctrine demanded. 3 other warhounds loped in a widely spaced line alongside Bestia S. The combined thunder of their feet picking up a towering column of dust into the still summer air. The Maniple's command reaver ran behind them, already outpaced. The Principe pushed their warhounds hard. Legio Volpa had a head start on them, and they were closing on their target. Legio Volpa, respond, Esha said, fighting to keep the strain from her voice. Please cease your march and engage communications via Vox or by infospheric data link. The course of action you're pursuing is illegal. Stand down! Power down your weapons! Legio Volpa's machines continued their steady pace. They haven't powered down their weapons, or they haven't powered their weapons up, not yet, said Jahani Jahan, who was in those distant days Esha's steerswoman aboard Bestia S. That means nothing. By Terra, I think they're going to do it! They're actually going to do it! Orders pinned into the machine's manifold. About time, Esha said, absorbing them. Full speed, bring weapons online! We're going to fire on them? Her left weapons Moderati said incredulously. We're going to threaten them, said Esha. She did not say that she would fire on the other Legio if commanded. The mind blend between the crew was already fragile. This information threatened to break it. She forgave them. Nothing like this had happened since the Crimson Accords, and the Treaty of Mons Olympus had ended rivalry between the Forges of Mars. No Legio had fired on another in 200 years. The Warhound's motors whined. The reactor thrummed through the Titan's skeleton with building power. Machines all around Esha gave audible cues, signifying readiness. Indicator lights switched from amber to green. Bestia Est and the rest were running flat out now, far ahead of the Maniple Reaver. Plasma blast gun online and ready, her left weapons Moderati said. Megabolter ready, said the right. Spool up power to the Vulcan. Begin rotation in preparation for firing, she ordered. Visual input from the Titan sensorium meshed queasily with her own sight and hearing. Anxiety ate into her concentration. She needed to remain dispassionate, but she could not in the face of Legio Volpa's determination to raise Bifex. There are 50,000 people in that city, she thought. 50,000 innocents. As it ran faster, Bestia Est began to sway. Its splay-toed feet gouged deep prints into farmland, despite the sun-baked hardness of the soil. Near Bifex were greener areas, orchards of fruit trees, flimsy plastic growing huts on stilts, and ranks of vines lined up neatly. Bestia Est and her sisters kicked it all to ruin. The machine ran on. Faster and faster, trailing irrigation drip pipes and fixing wires from its feet. Heretic, answer me! She said, still no reply. Heretic! Unprompted, Bestia Est let out a howl from its war horns. Her sisters joined in. Polyphonic arrays gave each Titan a different voice. Together they made a mournful, desperate music. They're still not responding, said Jahan. Emperor, how are we going to stop them? What do we do? She turned around in her seat. Through the glass of the faceplate, she stared out wide-eyed. Rivulets of flesh coursed down her forehead. The desperation of Jahani's words struck Esha. Emotion knifed her through the manifold. Jahani's sense of complete powerlessness was a feeling that would stay with Esha forever. Bring me around in front of them, said Esha. Now! Esha cut ahead a query from the Principe Majoris as Bestia Est swayed right, forcing its packmate, Gonfalon, out of the way. Faster! Esha said. The Legio Volpa were approaching the city's limits. Farmland stopped abruptly at a small rock-free boundary wall that curved back on itself in a graceful wave. It protected the streets against seasonal flooding that turned the farmland into a lake and Bifex into an island. In pics, it looked beautiful. The Deathstalkers could ruin that in minutes. Bestia Est ran around in front of the Legio Volpa Reaver, causing it to stop gracelessly and glare out an angry warning. They're locking their guns on us, said Esha's Moderati Oratorius. I'm aware of the fact, she said. She tried not to see the vast god weapon's tracking her engine, but the Warhound's oculus was large, and its machine senses too sharp to ignore. Legio Volpa's Manipul 7 came to a halt in a staggered line, 200 meters from the city. Bestia Est stopped on the scrubby ground between farm and floodwall. 3 warlords and 2 reavers glared at her with unblinking machine eyes, their guns locked on the head of the Titan. They could annihilate the Warhound in an instant. Do we raise shields? asked Jahani. No, said Esha. Esha? Leave them down. Don't provoke them. She imagined what was happening in Bifex, the people in the windows stopping to stare and point, the questions. What are they doing? Why are they here? The growing panic. A chime in her ear announced Interlegio Vox communication. I'll say this once, Esha, said Terran Heretic. Get out of my way. I will not, she said. This world is hours from compliance. Negotiations are nearly concluded. Bifex does not need to be destroyed. The people within are innocent. They are not innocent, said Heretic. The leaders of this city refused compliance. The population serves as soldiers. They have denied the Emperor. They do not deserve to live. Their leaders are at the negotiating table. The negotiations have taken too long already. It is a ruse. The enemy are preparing for long-term guerrilla war. They are not our enemies, said Esha. In razing this place to the ground, continued Heretic, we shall ensure true compliance today. Once they have witnessed the power of our god engines, they will not dare to raise their arms against the Imperium. I will not allow you to murder 50,000 people, Esha said. This is not murder. This is war. Stand aside, or do you wish to be remembered as the woman who provoked the first intercollegium conflict since the Age of Strife? Now they're powering their weapons, said Jahani Jahan. Stand aside, repeated Heretic. The volcano cannon on Nuntio Dolores' left arm mount dropped down until the barrel was pointing directly at Bestia Esta's face. A tense half-minute passed by. It was the longest of her life. The voice of her Principe Majoris came to her over the vox. Stand down. What? Esha responded. Stand down, Principe. The Legio Volpa are operating according to the terms of our alliance, and within the precepts of Crusade. If we stop them, we risk internal war. Is this your command, my Principe? She thought back. You wish to stop them as much as I. I still do. This tears my heart. The Great Mother commands it. Mother? Whispered Esha. Politics, said the Principe Majoris. Stand aside, for the good of our Legio and the Imperium. Esha shut her eyes. She imagined the people of the city more clearly. She imagined their fear. Esha, withdraw, commanded the Principe Majoris. She stared up into the volcano cannon barrel. Power down all weapons, she said quietly. Retreat. Rejoin the pack. Bestia S skulked off like a whipped dog to rejoin its sisters. Heretic chuckled dryly. Good girl, he said. You are welcome to help us if you wish. I will have no part of this. You've already played your part, Esha, said Heretic. You are deluded if you think the unification of mankind can be accomplished bloodlessly. I'd say that this gives me no pleasure, but that would be a lie. So must die all the enemies of unity. The links cut. The three warlords of Legio Volpa, Maniple 7, began to walk again. The two reavers paced after them slowly, waists rotating to keep the pack of warhounds covered. Nuntio Dolores' foot crushed the flood wall into powder as it strode directly into a tower. I think the music stopped. It did. Apologies. Restarting the jams. The building's face deformed. Glass burst into uncounted shards that bounced in shining rain from the Titan's armor. Its volcano cannon punched through the building to the other side, dragging out supports as the Titan waded into the city. As the Titan pulled free, the building's top slumped into itself. Floors slid down and scattered into the streets, like skidding cards from a drop deck. The weight broke the tower, and the whole edifice collapsed. Nuntio Dolores' power claw swung into another tower block, taking out the midsection in a cloud of dust that danced with disruptive lightning. Its Maniple brothers followed. Together they carved an avenue of destruction through the towers of glass. They had not even fired their weapons yet. For 5 minutes they continued their slow, methodical path of destruction. A collective scream rose from Bifex, loud enough for Esha to hear through the warhound's hull. Shortly after that, Legio Volpa began to shoot. Esha rested her hand protectively on her belly. The child within turned over, pushing against her palm. Stop replay, she said. Nuntio Dolores' back was trapped in a slice of time within the data slate. It jumped slightly in the feed, its carapace shrouded in dust. Esha fancied she could still hear the screams issuing from the flickering image. Deactivate, she said. The image collapsed into a single point of light. She stared at the blank glass display for a long time. Everything had changed after that. Relations deteriorated with Legio Volpa, to the extent that the Legio were separated and assigned to different expeditionary fleets. She had seen Terran Heretic one final time before they parted, and not since until she faced his warlord upon Iridium's docklands. She had known he was capable of that kind of atrocity the day they had met. What could she say? The women of the Legio were free to find their own bonds if they wished. Heretic's arrogance had attracted her. The first time she saw him, she wanted to get close to him, to antagonize him, to make him snap. She wished to humble him. A sad smile curved her mouth. A Principe was prideful on and off the field. The desire to prove their Legio best infiltrated everything. She really wasn't that much different to him. They'd lost so much joining with the machines. Sometimes she felt like she was but an extension of Domina Ex Venari, her needs and moods too closely aligned with that of the machine to call herself truly human. The last casualty of that miserable day was her friendship with Jahani Jahan. They continued to fight well together, but the closeness they had once shared was weakened, and finally broken with Abani Luce's birth. No matter how many Maserati of the Jahan bloodline Esha surrounded herself with, she could not recapture their lost friendship. Something else to hate Heretic for. Durana Fall had been there at Bifex too, as Principe on Red Claw. The effect on their relationship was the opposite, the shameful memory binding them together. The rest of her sisters from that time were dead, or on the other side of the galaxy. 2.5 decades had gone by. She could scarcely believe it. Esha rested her chin in one hand and tapped her nails on the table. They were short, lined with oil, not particularly feminine by the standards of many worlds. She wondered what kind of woman she would have been if she'd been born elsewhere. On Procon, for example, living out her life in the gilded cage of a noble woman. Bifix was when everything had changed. It was the time the dream of the Great Crusade had died for her. If she could trace her path into this violence that ripped apart the Imperium to a moment, it was when Heretic stepped through the wall. The fault for the war against the Emperor rested with his demigod sons and their wounded egos, but they were not solely responsible. The war had so many beginnings. Its roots lay in every bitter thought about an ally, every gun raised in anger on a friend, every imagined knife plunged into a brother's back. Each man and woman engaged in the war had a moment like Bifex. If only it had not been so. She sighed and kicked back in the chair. No use dealing in what-ifs or whys. No alternative path that she could dream of, or hopeless wish she could stop the fighting. I'll try to sleep, she promised herself. She leaned forward to get up, believing that perhaps she could rest. She was denied the chance to find out. The grating buzz of the hardline box set into the wall kept her from bed. She got up, picked up the handset with one hand, and silenced the alarm and its accompanying red light with the other. I think this is a tech priest. I'm not positive if this is a tech priest or not, so I'm gonna give it the tech priest voice partially because I enjoy doing it. Esha Ani Mohana, said the Vox Omni Machina. The Great Mother wishes to see you. Chapter 12. The Great Mother. Whew! How's everyone feeling so far? I'm getting a good vibe of Esha Ani Mohana. Like, I'm getting really, like, her mentality about the war and everything. And just how personal it all feels for her. Which is especially true when your fuckboy is literally trying to murder you and your daughter. Men will literally join a violent civil war for dark gods rather than go to therapy. Esha was joined by Abhani as she walked the long portside corridor of the mass conveyor. She was surprised to see her daughter, but did not show it, maintaining instead her superior officer's aloofness. Legio first, their motto ran. Esha was Abhani's commander before she was her mother. Why does she want to see us? Asked Abhani. She was still young and possessed of youth's talkativeness. She reminded Esha of herself at that age. Just you and I? That's unusual. Has something similar happened to you before? It has, said Esha, but it is unusual. She added after a moment. What do you think she wants? Abhani asked. She frowned. Have we erred? Do not attempt to guess, my daughter. The Great Mother does as the Great Mother will. She should learn restraint. Oh, you should learn restraint. Speculation leads to restlessness. A good huntress must take the situation she finds and exploit it to her best advantage, not waste her time wishing for it to be otherwise. Abhani was chastened. Esha felt a pang of guilt. Had she not been speculating herself only an hour before? The early days with Abhani had been wonderful, but they were long gone. The age gap between them was much smaller than between the Vat sisters and daughters of the Legio. Esha was 100 years younger than her own mother. The naturalness of Abhani's birth made the situation harder rather than easier. It baffled her that humans had reproduced in this way for so long. Many still did. The biology made a kind of sense, but the relationships were awkward. What a statement! What a statement about pregnancy. They fell into an uneasy silence. It took 15 minutes of walking through long corridors and a ride in a low-pressure express tube before they reached the other end of the Tantamon and the way into First Maniple's dropship. What they found there concerned Esha greatly. The Sally tunnel through the Great War Gates had been filled with votive images and incense sticks. The walls were covered over with neatly printed, repeating mathematical formula. The calculations were incomplete, of the most sacred kind. She recognized them, though she was not indoctrinated into the higher mysteries, for they were a central part of the cult, the closest any tech priest of any Forge World had come to rendering the prime equation, the incantation by which the machine god had called his Machina Cosma into being. A reverent hush filled the hangar. The Great Mother's warlord, Luxor and Victoria, stood in gleaming majesty at the far end of the dropship. There were identical sets of gates at prow and stern of the craft to allow rapid deployment into battle, but those the Great Mother stood against were hidden by a banner made from a single piece of cloth 50 meters high. Around Luxor in Victoria's broad but weaponed shoulders, the edges of the emblem of the Haga Mercus were visible, Tigress's badge, a towering pyramidal forge complex framing the sacred flame of knowledge superimposed over a cog. A million candles molded from used oils turned the central axis road running down the center of the ship into a river of light. The Myrmidons of First Maniple, all warlords, faced the door. Esha and Abhani entered by, standing guard over their order's leader. They were active, and their anti-personnel weaponry tracked the women as they walked into the ship. The dropship had been turned into a shrine. This was not normal, even for the Great Mother. Ordinarily, the tech priests showed their respect in the nose, or nays. The dropships were kept clear of clutter. Worse still was the silence. No tech priests or servitors were working. No hymns or sacred equations were being sung. Abhani came to a halt, open-mouthed. What's going on? She said. Nothing that need concern us. But Esha was just as discomfited by the solemn signs of piety on display. A Primidius, a senior tech priest day mechanic, came to them and wordlessly beckoned them to follow him to the foot of a curling spiral stair of brass and onyx that had been built around Luxor and Victoria's left leg. He pointed upwards, bowed, and withdrew. Come with me, daughter. The stairs wound round and round. What a fucking sentence. The stairs wound round and round the leg, allowing them to come close to the holy mechanisms of motion. Esha suspected the steps were intended to induce a feeling of humility, and they certainly worked in that regard. She felt insignificant beside the monstrous pistons at the back of the Titan's knee. When they came around again to the front, the Titan's head jutted over them, immense as a cliff engulfing them in its shadow. The steps leaned out on extravagantly arched cantilevers, allowing them to pass over the Titan's hips and the giant gyroscope housings. From there, the steps headed up and further out to connect with the balcony at the rear of the machine. Access to a warlord was above the waist, anatomically lower than a reaver's boarding portal, which was set between the shoulders. On the balcony, they were level with the rear portions of the god machine's immense weapons. The Great Mother was a firm believer in pinpoint kill shots at range, and Luxor and Victoria was equipped with twin volcano cannons. The door did not open. The opus machina on the door, resplendent in lacquered black and white, stared at them judgmentally. They took their places before it. What now, Mother? We wait on the Great Mother's pleasure, my daughter. Abhati sighed and turned away to lean on the balcony rail, where she stared at the emblem of their forge world on the flag. The Titan's defensive weapons were alert in tracking her movements. The whining servos of the ball mounts cut through the silence. Esha remained facing the symbol molded into the doorway. Steady heat radiated from the Titan's reactor within. The rattle of heavy bolts retracting in sequence had Abhani returning to her mother's side, and Esha standing straighter to attention. The door split apart, dividing the Holy Skull and Cog in two. The green glass eyes of the Vox Omni Machina glowed in the dark entrance. Greetings! Principe Majoris Esha Ani Mohana. Principe of Hani Lus Mohana. The Great Mother is expecting you. He stood aside. Abhani moved. Esha stopped her with a hand. What is the meaning of all this, Holy Father of Machines? Esha asked. Why is the dropship dressed as a temple? This is a solemn time, Daughter of War, said the Vox Omni Machina. What do you mean by that? I know you well, Principe Majoris. You possess the necessary mental acuity to deduce the current situation from the visual implications before you. It is not my place to say. The Great Mother will discuss it with you, if that is her will. Esha sighed in dissatisfaction and entered Luxor and Victoria. Some water. The door was large enough to pass through without stooping. A spiral stair went up the right-hand side of the deck, taking them past cramped open subdecks crammed with servitor alcoves and stations for the tech blade who maintained the Titan. Thank you for the follow, Nortsail. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you for hanging out. The reactor occupied a sealed central cylinder that ran the whole way through the Titan's torso. Its power output was much larger than the one on Domina X Venari, and its working even while idle electrified the air and made the metal shake. In the atrium at the top of the torso, behind the head, two Neokora worked under the supervision of a Prometheus. They attended to their tasks in respectful silence. A shrine occupied the rear wall, thick with papers bearing equations, the wax from old candles and offerings of minor components, and sacred trinkets. The tech priests ignored them, but turned respectfully away as the door to the head opened so that they would not profane the Great Mother with the touch of their eyes. The Great Mother's tank was immediately visible, for it took up most of the Sizella, the place of command. The higher the Titan class, the holier the Sizella, and Luxor and Victoria's was holy indeed. Abhani gave a little gasp. Both of them felt the warning prickle of hairs rising as they trespassed on sacred ground. The Sizella was dark. The status lights of dormant machines glinted on the tank's armor glass in smeared patterns of red, amber, blue, and green. Amnion filled the tank with blue shadow. Darker lines could have been feed lines or neural connectors, or perhaps the limbs of the Great Mother herself. Within the prison of armor glass and sustaining fluid was Esha's mother. One of the Neokora in the atrium depressed a button. A mechanism filled with the motive force engaged loudly. Lumens blinked on in the Sizella and around the base of the tank. Blue shadow became blank white, a human-shaped mood with liquid slowness inside. Vox emitters crackled on. Esha ani abhani loose, said the Great Mother. Her voice, actually I'll give her better voice. Esha ani abhani loose, said the Great Mother. Her voice filled the Sizella. Welcome, my daughter and my granddaughter. Come within the holy place of command. The two Principe entered the head of Luxor and Victoria. The door slid shut behind them. There was hardly any room with the tank in there, and they were forced to stand with their backs to the door and their face close to the glass. It has been too long, daughter, said Mohana Mankadavai. It has, said Esha. And you, my granddaughter. Thank you, Great Mother. This is such an honor, stammered Apani. You have been to this place once before. The words were addressed to Apani, but the omnidirectional nature of the Vox emitters made them seem impersonal. I don't remember. I don't remember, said Apani. You were a babe in arms, said the Great Mother. You brought me here? Apani asked Esha. I desired to see you myself, said the Great Mother. I'm sorry to have forgotten the honor. Forgive me, said Apani. She bowed her head. Not everything in life is a matter of honor, said the Great Mother. The first time was the privilege of family, and my pleasure. Though this time, now you are a woman and a Principe. You may account it an honor, and I'm sure you shall remember it. Despite the strange electronic modulation, Mohana Mankadavai's voice was full of humor. What might I do for you, Great Mother? Said Esha. The head of the warlord was as cramped as that of her reaver. A narrow gap had been left for Mohana Mankadavai's Moderati to squeeze past the tank to their stations. Otherwise, the front of the Sizella was completely obscured by the Great Mother's life support systems. So quickly to the point, my daughter. Very well. You are to be relieved by the Legio Ataris and redeployed to the core system. But this is our fight, said Apani in consternation. We have held this place for weeks. We should have the honor of retaking Thetagarmin. Apani's attitude flipped from meek to outraged in a moment. This was why their relationship was difficult. She had too much of her father's aggression. Esha gritted her teeth. Silence! Do not question the Great Mother's will. The decision has been taken, said the Great Mother. Beta Garmin screams for help. The capital world has fallen to the War Master. Narakan City is once again in his hands. The subsidiary planets of Beta Garmin are in deadly peril. We shall acquiesce to the requests of Lord General Bolivar of Fasadia and bring our engines to Beta Garmin 3. What about all we've done? What about the fight here? Said Abhani. Loyalist forces could reach critical mass. The offensive will begin soon. We cannot abandon this glory. We have rightly won our place here. Remember who you address, hissed Esha. A Principe should speak her mind, said Mohana Mankaravai to her daughter, though never so insubordinately. She said to her granddaughter, It is my decision. We are to be replaced by the Legio Ataris. We do not possess enough heavy maniples to contest this war zone. The Firebrands have more engines and a greater proportion of battle line units. Wars are won by the application of appropriate levels of force. This is not a fight that is favorable to our order. Our talents are required elsewhere. Esha placed a hand on Abhani's arm. Abhani tried to tug away, but Esha's grip was firm. So that's it? We're running away to heels, like hunting dogs? Said Abhani. Who is the man to command us to obey? Great Mother, please, we should remain to see our task here completed. Don't listen to them! Mohana Mankaravai's voice sounded loudly. Obey? A legio of the Collegia Titanica does not have to obey anyone, Abhani Luce. We are the wardens of the God machines. We are the iron fist of the machine god. We are above all. Above the orders of Terra and above Mars. We are beyond the command of our forge worlds. By ancient design, we are independent. To avoid ensnarement in the politics of men, we safeguard the domains of the cult Mechanicus as we see fit. We agree audience for petition for aid and grant our might accordingly to our own will upon the petitioner's merits. We are not told. The Titans of the Imperial Hunters walk at my decree, no one else's. If we go to Beta Garmin, then it is because I commanded it to be so. A month of negotiation is behind this decision. I do not act on impulse, ever. Abhani let out an angry noise and shook off her mother's hand. Be at peace, granddaughter. We are under strength. We are hunter-killers. The battle to retake Theta Garmin 5 will be a head-on clash between scores of heavy maniples. If we face the Tiger Eyes and Legio Volpa in open combat, they will be victorious. Let the Firebrands earn their glory here. This is their kind of war. We will be more useful elsewhere. I won't have it! Those dogs of the Legio Volpa are still here! We can kill them! Take them down! It's our right! Why can't we stay and aid the Firebrands? Mohana Mankaravai's outline moved in the Amnion. Abhani Luce, I see where your demands stem from. Your hatred of our old rivals is commendable, but your modus is unbecoming for a Principe. You will remember your place and calm yourself, or your position of commander of the Os Rubrum shall be granted to another. Perhaps a spell as a steersman will cool your temper and allow you time to think properly on the strategic exigencies of engine war. Abhani's face went white. Kneel, Abhani Luce. Abhani dropped to her knees. Her reddish hair flopped over her face, hiding her shame. I do not judge you harshly, granddaughter, for I too suffer the burden of human emotion. Do I think I called you here to relay this piece of information when you could receive it with the rest of the Order? Why do you think a mere warhound Principe should be brought into my presence? I assure you it's not because I seek your counsel. I do you honor by speaking with you of such matters, and you show your respect by questioning my judgment? Sorry, I didn't even take a pause. Speaking as Mahana Makatavai, and that big outburst really got my energy flowing. Hey Zara and hey Alex, welcome. Zara, I want you to know that you, yes you are my little pog. Are my little pog now. Whew. Okay, I'll turn the music down a bit more. Okay, that should be better. I have heard it's Principe, not Princess. I have heard it's Principe and not Princess, but since people keep raising this as an issue, I will Google it. I'll Google it after the stream. I'll Google it after the stream, just so people can stop correcting me. Mahana Makatavai spoke ominously. I am not mad, I'm disappointed. I hope Gen Con was good, Alex. It's Princeps? Yeah, there's no way in hell I'm pronouncing it Princeps. That's silly as hell. Just as a brief lore synopsis, we found out earlier that the Legio Solaria the Legio Solaria are openly sapphic. Like, she was at one of our characters was at a party with the rival Legion, and they were having drinks and stuff, and they were having a whose Legion is better. And she was like, yeah, at our Legion, we share everything. You know, we all mind impulse with each other so that nothing is hidden from each other. And the dude Principe was like, I hear you guys lie together too. And she goes, of course. Yeah, she goes, of course we all do. The body has needs, and the need to relieve, stress and tension. It helps us bond. So they're openly bisexual as a Legion. And since most of them are vat grown to be just women, you could totally be just straight up a lesbian in your Legion and for it to be totally okay. Our main POV girl, Esha Ani Mohana, is bisexual because she ended up banging the rival Titan Legion dude, and her daughter is a actual biological produced daughter. So yeah, we love our lesbian fucking Artemis themed giant mecha Legion of Italian / maybe Egyptian women. This is peak lore. Sex positive, polyamorous, bisexual mecha pilots. This is the real future of the 40 or 31st millennia that I wanted. Guy Haley gets a huge shout out for lesbian mecha pilots. Whew. All right. I'm sorry. Forgive me. Do not take Osruprum from me. I will show my worth. I swear. Abhani said. Mahana Makatavai's tone softened. I wish to see you both because the Legio will most likely be split. Perhaps not immediately, but it will have to be so. Esha is the last of my natural daughters. You are my last true granddaughter. The pair of you are part of me, not creatures spun of artificial genes whose code was stolen from my own, or clones born from copies of copies. You are my children. We are family. Her voice quieted further. That once meant something to humanity. Before this madness, we experienced replaced the brief hope of Imperium. Stand, granddaughter. Come close to my tank. Forget your anger. Remember our bond. Imagine being the one straight woman in Solaria, or does mind bonding with the lesbian titan make you gay? Wow, and they say there's nothing good in Warhammer. It's like they finally realized the amount of queer folks in the hobby. Yeah, exactly. You know, I feel this is back to Obsidian. I feel that with the way that specifically Legio Solaria pilots its titans, where when they do their mind impulse units and they basically join all of their minds together in kind of a hive mind and feel everything that the other girls feel and and think everything that they think. I 100% think that there is probably some queer rub-off that happens from that. Like, you could be 100% straight, but if you're constantly, like, mind bonding with lesbians, you're gonna get a little gay because you're gonna see how turned on they are by the other women in the Legion, how, you know, erotic they see the other bodies of the women. And that's going to affect you as a prolonged psychological effect. So, everyone's a little gay. We can't even pick an army. What makes them think we can pick a gender? Exactly. Yeah. You know, I needed this queer rep in my life of the lesbian fucking Titan Legion. Battle sister, please stop staring at my app section while we're mind bonded. Mind bonded, it's distracting. I'm a firm believer that we need to have some Space Marines kissing. You know, I support some gay Space Marine action. I will assert, however, that from most lore, Space Marines are basically, like, sexually gelded by their design. Like, their particular enhancement essentially makes it so that sexuality and romance isn't really a thing. It has been entirely replaced with brotherhood and duty. So I genuinely feel like Space Marines do not feel like any kind of romantic or sexual attraction. However, that has never stopped everyone from sexualizing Space Marines. I love all the women that look at, like, blood angels when they're out of their armor and stuff and go, God, these stupid, sexy fucking vampire men. Also, if you want some more queer rep for Warhammer, remember that in the book Rites of Passage about the Navigator houses, there is a canonically non-binary Skitari, as well as a gay administratum clerk and his husband. So, you know, the queers, they are popping up. Whew. All right, back to the book. Upon he moved to the glass, something came forward. Esha saw her mother's silhouette more clearly than she had for a dozen years. Despite the lines snaking back through the liquid, and all the accoutrements of technology sustaining her life, far beyond its natural span, she was still human. A shadowed head moved closer, then a hand thumped against the glass. It was white, pallid, swollen with fluid absorbed from the ambient, but it was a hand of flesh and blood, a living hand. Abhani flinched. Controversial take, Zara. I actually, so people understand the context of this, is that Space Marines are all aromantic and asexual, but Zara asserts that they're all hug as fuck. I actually have brought this up several times with my partner. I will assert that Space Marines are not hung. The reason why is because having a large penis is not necessary for a Space Marine, since they process, all of their, urine and stuff, like automatically in their power armor interface. So the penis doesn't produce testosterone. However, I would assert that Space Marines have enormous testicles. So we've got these, like, real small dick chodes, but these just hulking fucking testicles. That is my assertion as to how Space Marine anatomy works. And nothing will change my mind. I'm sorry. Also, hey Michael, long time no see. I hope you're doing well. I miss you too. Uh, I hope you're doing well. We're just talking about lesbians and giant Space Marine balls. Could it be based on the Greek belief that a big dick means you're stupid? Uh, that has to be the largest, projecting thing I've ever seen. Of course it's big. That's where the gene seed is. There must have been a bunch of, like, fucking Greek philosophers who were like, yeah, man, I'm tired of all these super hung dudes making me feel insecure. Here's my new theory. They're just dum-dums, big idiots with their huge swinging cocks. Who would even want a dick that big? It would just hang too low. I believe small dicks is true peace. That's what a real woman wants. A nice small cock. That's a sign of brilliance. Nerd. Okay. Yes, yes. Mohana Mankadavai said, as if seeing Apani for the first time. Handsome, upright, as a woman of House Vi should be. I see you, Abhani Luce. You are still me. I too was proud and headstrong. Unbridled power was my reward. So too was this watery prison. Master your impulsive nature, or it will be your undoing. The hand squeaked down the glass and vanished back into the murk. I am glad to see you, for you have that much to learn. We are family, and remember that counts for much. But remember also that always, always, legio comes first. What? Well, then why are we taking advice from the priestess with the massive swinging cock? This is why this chat couldn't be a Titan Legion. We just flood the battle box chatter with allied space marine gene seed sack sized speculation speak. Hey, Prankafe, what do you think the Horus's sons have for relative gene seed size? I'm guessing they're real watermelon ones. What do you think, Moderati? Oh yeah, I'm gonna say probably some nice grapefruits. I'm thinking they're a little on the smaller end. As our engines died, it's the last word on our lips. I swear I shall learn, said Abhani. I shall redouble my efforts, triple them. I'm sorry. Give me the satisfaction of pride in your maturity, not apologies for its lack. Now go, granddaughter of mine. I wish to speak to your mother. May the machine god guide you to better understanding and watch over the functioning of your machine. The door opened, Apani bowed, and made her way back out of the cramped confines of the Cizella. The door shut behind her. You still have not told her, last of my daughters? Said Mohana Mankadavai when she and Esha were alone. No, I never will. She cannot know. In the tank, Mohana Mankadavai's head moved within its nest of cables. Maybe that is for the best. Maybe it would have been for the best, even were we not at war. Abhani Luce abhors the Deathstalkers, as any woman of our legio should, but her hatred of Volpa surpasses that of any other huntress. This is a mark of her father. Volpa a vengeful, angry breed. Perhaps I wonder, does she know deep down? She paused. But then, who needs any other reason to hate the Deathstalkers? Their being what they are. The Legio Volpa are cruel warriors. Um, Also, another thing of just Legio Solaria biology I was opining about earlier. Um, so Esha Ani Mohana had a flashback to when she was a Warhound pilot and she was pregnant with Abhani Luce. She was like 6 months pregnant, was complaining about how the child was on her bladder, making her want to piss all the time while she was commanding the Titan. But I theorized based on Esha'ani Mohana's statement that like the women are basically like chosen for their compatibility for Titan piloting, and if being pregnant with your daughter while piloting Titan helps increase the likelihood of them being compatible, because much like how if you have alcohol or narcotics and stuff, it while you're pregnant, that affects the fetus. That all of the combat drugs and various stimulants and stuff that the Titan pilots take while piloting their mechs also would go into the womb and affect the fetus, as well as the like the neural feedback from interfacing with the impulse unit, as well as the Titan's manifold, and how that would also cause the child to be more reactive to a Titan when they interface with it. You gotta get the girls addicted to battle chems early. It's a necessity. Like, basically, it's just mecha fucking crack babies. They are not alone, said Esha. There has always been a surfeit of cruelty among the armies of the Emperor. Do you defend our erstwhile allies, daughter? I do not, said Esha. She looked above the Great Mother, where the glass narrowed and the great bundle of cabling that kept her alive entered through a thin neck of glass collared in metal. What they did was indefensible, even before they turned traitor. Their methods were questionable. She looked at the grayish blob that was Mohana Mankadavai's head. She wondered what the old woman must look like. Esha had been born so long after Mohana Mankadavai had been submerged in the tank, the last of her frozen ova successfully brought to term, that she had never seen her mother as a young woman. She had seen pics, and it was said by those who had known Mohana when she was still mortal that Esha resembled her a great deal. Esha's imagination, usually so ruthlessly subordinated to the task of commanding a reaver, filled in for her of a picture of horrific decrepitude, of skin so loose it hung like wet white cloth, and eyes shriveled to black fruit pits. She had never been able to see her mother as anything other than a crone, and she saw the same fate approaching for herself in the mirror as age laid its siege lines over her face. I do question if they ever had much choice, if any of us did. Mohana Mankadavai's voxmeter let out a curious electronic blurt. Perhaps it took the place of a sigh. It was doubtful the machine priests had included mental pattern recognition for something so human as a meaningful exhalation. To many of them, such a human flesh-bound thing would appear devoid of informational content. It chilled Esha how far the priests of their religion had diverged from humanity. I think that sometimes, said Mohana Mankadavai, but I am in error doing so. All the achievements and woes of my life stem from one instant of decision. You are familiar with how I became Grand Master. Of course, said Esha. She hesitated. Great Mother, I have heard the story a score of times from you yourself. The Great Mother was silent for a moment. I am growing forgetful. A consequence of old age, she said. I could have left the prize behind. Instead, I took it up. All this would have been otherwise had I not. Legio Solaria would have been a very different Legio. It would not bear the cognomen of the Imperial Hunters. Were its engines not piloted by experts of the hunt. If the knights, rather than the huntresses of House Vi, had given their gene stock and traditions to Tigris, perhaps it would be no better an order than the Deathstalkers. But we will never know, because that did not happen. Indeed not, said Esha. Do you believe in fate? Said the Great Mother. Esha shifted slightly. She clasped her hands behind her back and straightened her spine. You are uncomfortable answering, said the Great Mother. A large percentage of the Apocrypha to the 16 universal laws wrestles with the conundrum. Law 8. The Omnissiah knows all, comprehends all. Right. If he knows and comprehends all, then by definition the machine god's plan is knowable and comprehensible. By extension, if the Machina Cosma operates to predictable principles, then those principles can be known and comprehended. The universe is a code to be deciphered, according to this philosophy. If one can but reach the highest levels of comprehension. Esha said nothing. To state an opinion either way was to put oneself with the camp of one of the major divisions within the erstwhile Mechanicum. I do not believe that all is knowledgeable, or is knowable, said Mohana Mankatavai. The machine god made mankind to understand the mysteries of his creation. What would be the point of that if we had no choice? But rolled like steel bearings down the paths of a random decision generator. I have come to decide that my actions were not fated. That moment on that glorious day, I would have ridden aside from the chase. I could have chosen not to take my horse out in the first place. I could have watched the knights across the finishing line from the stand with my sisters and mother. But I was a huntress, so I did go out. I am impulsive, and I chafed against the restrictions of our culture. So when the time came and my brother dropped the trophy, I made the decision to pick it up. I did not feel guided. I did not feel it was inevitable. I remember making that decision, daughter. There was no great cosmic weight bearing down on me, forcing me to do it. I chose to, as surely as a hunter chooses to lose his arrow at his quarry, or not. As surely as you choose the moment to unleash the solar furies of your plasma destroyer. It was my choice, Esha. I think we're going to end here for today because my voice is really drained after all of that. Huh. Some real spicy girl-on-girl philosophy stuff. I also like the description now of girl-on-girl philosophy. That's my philosophy personally. Alright everyone, you know what time it is. If you haven't done so already, please feel free to give me a follow here on Twitch. give me a sub over on YouTube, where I also have every chapter or every previous stream of this book. You can also follow me on Blue Sky to see all my thoughts and art and everything. Uh, and you can join my Discord, the Eternal Citadel, and be a part of my incredible community. I want you all to know you're all beautiful, amazing, and valid people, and I hope you enjoyed spending your afternoon with me nearly as much as I enjoyed spending it with you. And never forget the most important part, which is that the world is better having you in it. Achieving enlightenment through kissing. Certified facts. And thank you for the gift sub, Dolphase. I'm sure that Scythio will really like those sweet, sweet Obsidia emotes. Um, that'll be it for today. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a stream tomorrow. Tomorrow, Yuko gets home, so I'm probably going to be hanging out with them whenever that is. But we will be back here next week, probably next Wednesday, because I have a leadership training on Tuesday and the leadership training, I think, on Thursday and Friday. Um, they better, well, you know what happens to the rest. They become servitors? No, they become tech breeze. um, so we'll be back here for that. Hopefully soon I will have a job. I'll have a new job. I should find out Friday afternoon or early next week if I got the job that I interviewed for this week, which would be awesome. And once that's determined, I have a better idea of my future stream scheduling going forward. Um, but that'll be it for us for today. Let's go raid Peculiar Little Rabbit. If you are a follower, please copy down the call to hugs. If you are a sub, please copy down the knight's message. She is currently playing Rainbreaker, which sounds like something involving knights and killing kings, which is a wonderful hobby. Before there were guillotines, there were knights chopping people's heads off, which is more true, which is true on multiple levels. But let's go send B some love. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you for hanging out with me, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.